Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. So today we are going to completely demystify English grammar. We're taking those rigid, honestly kind of frustrating tense rules and transforming them into real-world speaking confidence. If you've ever felt totally overwhelmed by those giant grammar tables, you are in the exact right place. We're going to visually break down the timeline of the English language so you can finally speak without constantly second-guessing yourself.
Okay, let's dive right in with the question that literally plagues almost every language learner out there. Do you freeze up trying to find the right tense right in the middle of a live conversation? You know the feeling, right? You're chatting, the words are right there on the tip of your tongue, but suddenly panic sets in. You're thinking, wait, should I say I go, I went, or I was going?
Well, this perfectly captures the exact problem, as brilliantly summed up by a student named Abi. He admitted that while the textbook rules make total sense on paper, when you're just sitting quietly in a classroom, applying them on the spot during an actual fast-paced conversation just brings total confusion. It's that classic case of knowing the theory but really struggling with the real-time execution. So, to tackle this, here is our roadmap. First, the tension of tenses. Then, the 12-tense framework. Third, decoding the present. 4, mastering the past. 5, navigating the future. And finally, practice and real application.
All right, starting with Section 1, the tension of tenses, bridging theory and speech.
So why is this frustrating gap between theory and what we actually say so hard to cross? Why does our brain get stuck? The absolute crucial key here is mapping. Fluency really comes down to mapping the sentence endings you naturally think of in your native language, like Hindi for example, directly to their precise English structural formulas. Think of it like a shortcut. If you can instantly recognize the sound of a habit or an ongoing action right at the end of your native sentence, boom, you can instantly select the right English rule.
Moving right along to Section 2, the 12-tense framework, visualizing time and state.
Now this is where it gets really cool. The concept of tense, which simply means the time an action happened, actually breaks down into a really simple hierarchy. It first branches into 3 main time frames, right? Present, past, and future. Then each of those 3 time frames drops down into 4 specific states: simple, continuous, perfect, and perfect continuous. So whenever you speak, you are really just picking one time frame and one state. That's it. It's just a menu of 12 options, no more, no less.
Let's put that map to use in Section 3, decoding the present tense. Habits and now.
Okay, let's jump straight into the present tense. We need to map our familiar present states directly to their formulas. In Hindi, if your thought is a habitual action, something you do every day, it usually ends in sounds like tha hai or te hai. Well, that native identifier is your trigger for the V1 rule, which is just the base form of the English verb. But if it's an ongoing action, something happening right this second ending in raha hai, that triggers a different rule, the is, am, or are plus V1ing formula.
When we compare these textbook rules, we can really spot the difference. For the present indefinite, words ending in ta hai or ti hai just pair with V1 or V1 with an S or ES if you've got a singular subject. Contrast that with the present continuous rule. Sentences ending in raha hai or rahe hai demand that helper verb, is, am, or are attached right to an ing action verb.
To put that into perspective, let's say you're describing a daily habit, like waking up at 6. Your native thought likely ends in that habitual ta hai sound. That tells us instantly that we are in the simple present state. Because of that, we just grab the simple base verb wake, and we get I wake up at 6 in the morning. Notice there's no am, no ing. It's just the subject and V1, simple and clean.
But what if you are feeling dizzy right now? Your internal thought naturally ends in that raha hai ongoing state. That continuous identifier is a giant flashing sign telling us the action started in the present and is actively happening, so we absolutely must use the present continuous formula. We take the subject I, tack on the helper am, and add ing to the verb feel. The result? I am feeling dizzy.
Moving on to Section 4, mastering the past tense, finished and long ago.
So we've anchored the present. Let's tackle the past tense. We can neatly organize the past by matching simple, recently finished actions, those thoughts ending in sounds like ah, e, or yay, straight to the V2 formula, which is the second form of the verb. However, for actions that were completely finished a long time ago, ending in chukata, we trigger the past perfect state, and that uses the had plus V3 formula. When we contrast these rules, you can really see how the past indefinite leans heavily on that V2 form for simple affirmative sentences. But notice the past perfect rule. For thoughts ending in chukatha, it strictly requires the word had, followed by the third form of the verb, V3, regardless of the subject. Let's actually test this out. Say you are talking about buying a book. Your native thought ends with a simple, finished past identifier. It happened, it's totally done. So we immediately apply the V2 rule. The base verb is buy, but since we need V2, we use bought. That gives us the perfect sentence. I bought a book.
On the flip side, what if you want to say someone had already completed an action way back then? Like, let's say you're talking about someone who had already watched a TV show. The native identifier clearly points to a task firmly completed in the past. This triggers our past perfect rule. We grab had and add the V3 form of watch, which is watched, giving us the phrase, he had watched Money Heist.
All right, section 5. Navigating the future tense. Predictions and plans.
Now for our final time frame, the future. For future actions, we basically just listen to our internal thoughts for predictive endings. Think sounds like ga, ge, or ji. A simple prediction means we use the will plus V1 formula. But if you're envisioning an action that will be actively ongoing at a specific moment in the future, you'll need the will be plus V1 plus ing formula.
So, let's say we predict Ram's meal later tonight. We apply that simple future rule to get Ram will have dinner. And actually, here's a fantastic real-world tip. Notice how we say will have dinner instead of will eat dinner. While eat definitely isn't wrong, using have is just a much more natural, native-sounding substitute when you're talking about having meals like breakfast, lunch, or dinner. And finally, Section 6. Practice and real application. Building muscle memory.
Okay, it's time to turn all these abstract concepts into permanent muscle memory. Because let's face it, rules mean absolutely nothing without execution. Let's do some rapid-fire examples. He is driving the bus. We hear that ongoing present state, so we immediately use is driving. Next, these kids have eaten. The action is perfectly completed in the present, so we use have eaten. And finally, Sham went to Agra, a simple past movement, so we jump straight to that V2 form, went.
If you want to stop translating in your head and start speaking fluently on autopilot, you really have to actively practice. You can't just memorize the tables and call it a day. You need to practice storytelling. You need to record yourself describing your daily activities. And, this is absolutely crucial, you need to find and correct your own mistakes. That active repetition is exactly what bridges the gap between Avi's confusion and total effortless fluency. Well, you now have the ultimate cheat code for mastering the 12 English tenses. We've mapped the time frames, we've matched the states, and we've decoded the formulas. But knowing the rules is really only step 1. So I'll leave you with this. You have the tools, but will you start practicing your story today?
Thank you so much for visiting my YouTube channel and my unofficial biology on Facebook page. Thank you.